This episode was recorded in front of a live audience where viewers voted for the ingredients. It has been edited down from its original runtime. One thing I want to throw out at y'all before we get started with too much stuff is, do you want to bottle condition this? It's low enough ABV. I think it started at 107.2, so it's high, but it's low enough ABV that we should be able to bottle condition this if you want to, or we can leave it still. Try it still and see if okay, dilute, we can try that. So you see back here, we've got some numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Underneath these numbers is a category. We've got, the stuff you're voting on today is base sugars. And so you're gonna vote on the ingredients from those categories, but also you're gonna vote on which category we're going to do next. So we'll start with a vote of between 1 and 4. Whichever one gets the most votes, we'll choose, and we'll go from there. So unlike typical shows, you're not going to be starting with your base, because I felt like that was too easy. And so we're gonna go in whatever order, whatever random order y'all choose today. So Rob, I want to start, and y'all give Rob major shout outs because he is going to be very agile for us today. I want to start with the poll on 1, 2, 3, or 4 and get folks voting on that while we taste this. So this is our hooch that we made in episode 0. The nose on it's pretty delicate. It's got kind of like a little bit of a Riesling kind of zing to it. It's still got just a hint of yeastiness to it though too. The tannin is nice on that. I wasn't expecting it at first. There is a little chocolate note on the end. It's subtle. I do think sparkle would help, but I also think that given a couple months to age and then maybe served chilled, this would be kind of nice still. So I'm gonna let y'all debate, discuss, whatever. How about we leave one bottle still and we bottle condition the rest? That sound all right? I'm into that idea. I'm full of good ideas. Yeah, stilled. Yeah, we could get a nice thimble of ethanol out of there. I have to call in Anna to like hold stuff for me. This is why I dislike auto siphons so much. There we go. It's really not set up for this sort of situation. Hey Zach, we are racking off. Actually, we're bottling off episode 0's hooch that we made. Okay, looks like number 3, says Rob, is the winner. Thank you, Rob. So we're starting with wild card. So Rob had this idea. Was that worth the wait? I think so. Rob had this idea that if you want a wild card, you have to choose. Do you want to choose to open the wild card box, or do you want the choice of picking our yeast for today's brew? Wild card or yeast, and we're not gonna poll. We're just gonna debate in the chat, and I'll see what the tone of the chat is. Apocry, I hope I'm saying that right, says, what's the plan for all the bottles from BrewsLab? Would be cool to see a taste testing with other folks, get some different takes on the bizarro flavor combos. Yeah, so I think my plan is to just scuttle them away. And then, yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, maybe we'll bust them out for a happy hour hijinks and bring, like, man-made mead over or get David to come over and we'll do some tasting. Because there's, you probably saw on our Instagram, we've got a ton of stuff stored in the closet in the studio right now. Hey, Apofox. Okay, so it looks like everybody, the tone is wild card. So we will open the wild card box just as soon as I get this finished. And that way we can get this out of the way so we have room to talk about the wild card box. This cleared wonderfully. There's barely any stuff. There's just like a fine film of stuff in the bottom of here too. For your wild card options for today, for your wild card options today, a little bit of a blast from the past. We've got those cinnamon imperials from our last cider Perry episode. Kind of like Red Hots, little cinnamon candies. We wouldn't use all of them, but we use enough of them to make a difference. Second of our wild card ingredients is ground nutmeg. Third on our wild card ingredients are lime leaves. Lime leaves. And I don't think I've ever used lime leaves in anything, so I'm curious how that will go. I don't think I've even smelled them. They don't really have a smell. I guess I could take a bite out of one if we get there. So if anyone has guidance on lime leaves or has some recommendations for how those would be used, that's our third potential wild card ingredient. Seen them used in an Acer Glen and it ruined it. They are very strong. Interesting. That's a weird pairing. Lime leaves and maple syrup is not something I would ever put together outside of BrewsLab. Okay, lastly, we've got lemongrass. A lot of lemongrass. So I'm gonna let y'all get started on the vote. Rob's got a straw poll. The wild card ingredient options that you have are cinnamon candies, lemongrass, nutmeg, or lime leaves. So let's actually delineate which one is still by putting a red cap on that one. How does that sound? So carbonation drops are pre-measured dextrose. This is dextrose, just like a little piece of candy. And they're pre-measured for kind of a standard volume of CO2 once the active yeast consumes them for a 12-ounce bottle. If you're using a 22-ounce bottle, you would want to use 2 of them. All right, I'm gonna mute my mic real quick and knock these out. When I opened this the other day, it smelled very much of orange peel, which y'all had a whole like tablespoon of zest go in here. Woo! Lime leaf is great in curry. That totally makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna rack this off, and I'm about to call that straw poll. Rob, if you can throw up our next straw poll that has choices between 1, 2, and 4, you will choose your next category from that poll. Like I said, I don't feel like I pay Rob enough for his service. This is so tall. It is quite dark. Hello, Anna is here. It's about, like, here in person, if I was to assess it in the tube, I would say it looks a whole lot like Coca-Cola. And again, it smells very citrusy. It's weird because the smell of it is quite a bit different than the look of it. It smells like what I would expect like a blue moon to smell like, but it's it looks like what I would expect like a Guinness to look like. Y'all are voting for what category? Rob says that number 1 is in the lead. So I gotta say, I think I nailed it on quantity. Beautiful, beautiful. I know y'all are gonna want me to take a taste on this. Y'all gotta be impressed though that we made a beer together. We came up with a recipe and we made a beer in 2 hours on stream. Here's CJ's favorite airlock. Okay, lemongrass is what we're going with for wild card. So we'll put these others away. And then it looks like, which option should we reveal next? So much mysterious. Okay, so we're gonna go with number 1. Number 1 is our tannin option. Tannin before the base, I know. It's so absurd. I can guarantee you that there aren't raisins in this box. I almost put raisins in this box. So your options for tannin are, starting out, dandelion root. We'll have to toast this if we use it, because we'll want a little bit of that toasty roastiness in there, just like you would if you're making coffee or tea. This is currently untoasted dandelion root. And it kind of smells like sweet, sweet fresh wood, like a fresh cut, like wet wood. Smells really good. Dandelion root. Other option we have for tannin is licorice root. Everybody knows what licorice tastes like. Some love it, some hate it, some tolerate it. Licorice root. Licorice root has I guess you would call it a chemical in it that creates a sensation of sweetness that is it's not something that will ferment out. So this is the type of thing that while it will add a tannic quality, we'll have to toast this too, toast this a little bit. While this will add a tannic quality, this will also impart some sweetness that we won't be able to get out. So be thinking about that with licorice root. Next option for tannin. This is unsweetened 100% cacao baker's chocolate. Oh, they actually have a serving suggestion here on the front. I don't know who would just eat this. 100% cacao. I'm not worried about the oil, honestly. I don't think we will use enough for me to worry too much. And if there is an oil that forms on the surface, we'll just rack from underneath it. Last option for tannin is Café du Monde. It's coffee with chicory. Coffee with chicory. You have dandelion root, licorice root, chicory coffee, or 100% cacao. It smells chocolatey, it smells biscuity, it's got some like Maillard kind of smells, which I'm gonna guess comes from that midnight wheat malt that we used. Oh, there's no body on that. There's a little bit of maltiness, but it's like almost like a coffee kind of malty flavor, like a roasted. I mean, it's that midnight wheat. Weirdly, the orange comes through on the nose, but not on the palate. I'm gonna just hope that this needs time, but this is pretty not good. I don't know. There's a chance that we might want to like add maltodextrin or something to it and thicken it up a little bit. Yeah, CO2 will help. It's like, it goes down like water. It is thin. Like it doesn't hang around. I think that's the weird thing about it, is it looks like that kind of beer that would be so chewy that it would kind of like linger on the palate, but it doesn't. It just goes in and vanishes. Really odd. Zach says, I made a citrus mead and it's very sour and a little perfumey tasting. What could I do to try to fix it? Typically for sourness, you'll want to balance that out with some sugar, some sweetness. And so what you might do is pull off a couple of samples and just use like granulated cane sugar or a little bit of honey and mix it in there and get it nice and sweet. And to like a few different sweetness levels and see if that helps offset the sourness. A lot of times if you're doing a mead with like a lot of fruit or maybe no water, it's all fruit juice, you need a lot of residual sweetness. Some folks are sweetening up to like 1.04, 1.06, 1.08, or just leaving that much residual sweetness in order to combat the sourness, the tartness that comes with some of those big fruit bomb meads. You might try that. You might try pulling some samples and trying it. And he says her husband would have a dandelion and burdock soda when he lived in England when he was a kid. We've got a place near here that sells all kinds of different sodas. Maybe I'll have to check in and see if they've got that. Drink it because I like it. Has anyone out there had, we'll have to open the can. It's got it's sealed. I thought it would be like a pop top situation. This is a perfect time to break out my vintage can opener. Ooh, that hiss. In making the butter beer, I've been experimenting with some unusual ingredients, some of which come from a can, and my like bougie department store can opener would not open the cans properly. So we ended up having to get this vintage can opener, which came in the original packaging. So for the first time in 50 years, I got to be the person to take this out of its packaging and use it to open those cans with, which is kind of fun. Woo, that's a dark roast. The bittering just right up the nose. Yeah, that smells really good. It looks like dandelion root is in the lead. If anybody has a differing opinion, wants to vote in that poll, Rob's got your straw poll. I'm going to go ahead and call this one because dandelion root is far enough out in the lead that I feel like it's not going to be passed. We'll just dump it all in. I think what we'll do is we'll measure out and see what like 2 tablespoons is, and then we'll go from there. I think that should be enough for primary. Now y'all are voting for our other categories. You have chosen your wild card. You've gone with lemongrass. You have chosen your tannin. You have gone with dandelion root. And now we need to figure out what we're going to do with our base and with our adjunct. So those are your other options, our base and our adjunct. Our base will be whatever juice that we're fermenting with. And then our adjunct will be, there's kind of an assortment of things in the adjunct box. Adjunct box almost could have served as wild card box this time around. This is called a spoonula. Anna discovered the spoonula and bought us one. And it has become basically the like most used spoon-shaped thing in our kitchen since we got it, to the point where I requested that we get a second one. Ours was always dirty, so we have 2 spoonulas now. Rob says, I love my spoonulas. Just lightly toasting this dandelion root. We're just trying to get a little bit of color on here, not go overboard. And I think we are there. So let's kill that. Earthy, but quite woody. Just like a little bit of like a popcorny kind of smell too. It's nice. I'm gonna call it. We're gonna go with number 4. So your next choice is adjunct. I really created a scene in here. Good thing there's not a smoke detector in here. Can see what we're doing here. Yeah, this is basically backwards order. Y'all have chosen backwards order for how to build a recipe, so this should be quite fun. So these are your adjuncts. The adjunct typically is the thing that adds just a little extra zhuzh, a little extra flavor to your brew. So your tannin is that thing that gives it astringency, mouthfeel, body, really kind of helps it coat your mouth, and sometimes creates that kind of sucking sensation, like kind of wicking sensation like you'd get in a really like bold red wine. Adjunct is just like a complementary flavor to the brew, which we still don't know what the brew is. We still don't know if it's a cider or a perry, so yep. So first on the potential ingredients, let me get my Powerade out of the way. Liquid smoke. Y'all ever had liquid smoke? I feel like the camps on liquid smoke are as divided as the camps on like red versus black licorice. Second potential ingredient is this grapefruit. We could decide to go with some zest. We could decide to go with some juice. We could decide on both. Third potential ingredient for adjunct is Citra Hops. Citra Hops, you may know if you watch our YouTube channel, that's doing the most. Citra hops are my favorite hop. So I would be happy to use these in a cider or perry. And we would probably dry hop with somewhere in the realm of between 5 and 12 grams of hops. And then last potential ingredient is fresh, organic sage. Sage, the thing that makes breakfast sausage taste the way it does. Sage is delicious and really like easy to grow. Grapefruit, hops, liquid smoke, or sage as our adjunct to go in here. Rob's got your straw poll in the chat. The first 3 ingredients will definitely drive what the base will be, or should, says Paula. Valkyrie says, honestly can't tell whether liquid smoke in a cider would be genius or an act against God. Zach, a perry is a cider made out of pear juice. Rob's got your straw poll in the chat. So the fun with grapefruit would be that it would give us some of that citric acid that's so nice in a cider or a perry. That kind of gives it like a sense of freshness, a little bit of freshness, a little bit of pop in there. But the zest would give us some zing. Larry says you should do an opposite episode one time. Vote on what we don't want. Oh, that could be fun. Yeah, I think using both in a cider would be nice with the grapefruit. Grapefruit, tried and true. Yeah, Lotus for Life. The zesty pie mint. I actually opened a bottle of it the other day just to see how it's doing, and it's fabulous still. The zesty pie mint we did on the channel used grapefruit zest, and I'm telling you, this room back here smelled so good for the entirety of primary. And I know a lot of what that is those volatile flavors and aromatics gassing off through the airlock, but a lot of it was also retained. Looks like hops is in the lead. It's 2:15, so I'm going to call that. And it looks like our adjunct ingredient will be hops. I'm all about that base, and so we've got some options down here, starting with, obviously, apple juice. This is apple juice concentrate. This should be enough for us to mix up a gallon of cider. Our second potential base is pear juice. Yes, this is the same pear juice that was on our last Perry cider episode. I couldn't help but bring it back because we've got a gallon of it. So we might as well. Your third option is to blend the two. So we would use probably 1 can of the apple and probably 3 or so things of the pear juice. This would bring it more into a wine territory because it would be higher grav. So it would be like a wine, not necessarily like a cider, but that's fine. That's part of the category, right? Option 4, I've got here what used to be, what used to be 4 pounds of pears that have been sliced and completely dehydrated into pear chips. Option 4 is pear chips, invert sugar to create a pear chip wine / perry from dehydrated fruit. Apple juice concentrate, pear juice, apple pear blend, or dried pears and invert sugar. I'm very curious to see your deliberations in the chat talking about the merits of these. I have never done a perry before. 162 grams of sugar. So if somebody wants to plug that into a brew calculator, it'd be 162 grams of sugar added to a 1.05-ish starting gravity. You know, when I was a kid, I ate the hell out of some pears. My aunt, her name was Elvita, but she went by Veet because children had trouble saying Elvita, so she just shortened it. She had a pear tree and some apple trees, but she had a pear tree in her backyard that just was, it felt like was just always covered in ripe pears. And so I would just like go out there and just down pears to the point where my mother would come out and get me and be like, you've got it, you too much fiber. You gotta stop. 11.92. We'll call that 12 grams. What do you want to do? So we talked about doing like 2 tablespoons of dandelion root tea. What do y'all want to do for the lemongrass? How much lemongrass do you want to use? We're going to need a significant quantity in order for it to cut through. So this much is 92 grams. Too little? Too much? In Thailand once, I had a breakfast soup, which when they said like you got to try the breakfast soup, I was like, that soup and breakfast don't jive for me. But they pleaded the case, and so I tried the breakfast soup, and it was a lemongrass heavy soup, and I'm telling you, it was probably the best breakfast I have ever had in my life. It was, and I've never had it again. I've tried to recreate it and haven't been able to hit that flavor profile. But man, lemongrass breakfast soup, clutch. I want to say there was like a little bit of whitefish in there too. It was really nice. 3 votes out in the lead. Apple pear blend is what we're gonna do. So move some things around here. Get our pear chips off of here. So for those of you just joining us, this is BrewsLab, where you have voted on the ingredients, and we are mixing up an alcoholic brew recipe live. For our adjunct, we've got Citra Hops, which smell amazing. So these hops pellets are going to ride out all of primary. They'll settle to the bottom with our lees. We're also adding in our dandelion root, which we toasted. This will also ride out primary. Switch to this guy here. That is currently the inside of your carboy. So I'm just like butterflying it. Whoop, lost a part there. And then we'll give it some slices through the stalk. Kind of like that. So it's just like splayed open. I would hate to do this whole thing and get through it and say, man, I really wish that lemongrass flavor came through. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's Doing the Most Okay on Instagram. Man, I got a mess in here. It smells like pears. It smells like apple juice, kind of. Not a lot of sugar in here for it tasting so sweet. Okay, that's mixed up. Let's go ahead and get a gravity reading on that. I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I really want to thank these folks who are supporters of the channel. We've got quite a few new ones that have joined over the last few weeks. So I appreciate all of you for supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can become a YouTube member by clicking join under any of our videos on YouTube. If you want to become a patron, just go to doingthemost.org, and on the sidebar there's a Patreon link where you can sign up there. Tons of member benefits. Mostly I just want to say thank you to these folks, but thank you everybody. I look forward to this every Saturday. This is a whole hell of a lot of fun. So I enjoy hanging out with y'all and brewing up weird crap. Now it's time to get your guesses in. 1064, 1052, 1058, 1075, 1065, Q067. I don't think there are any Qs on my hydrometer, any. We are right at 1.060. So Flail Snail and Lotus, it looks like, you both nailed it. 1.060 on the line. I'm not going to taste this week because it is not in any way properly mixed up right now. And I don't want to be gargling hops for the next hour. So if that ferments dry, we're looking at somewhere in the range of 7 3/4% alcohol. I think the apple and the pear should play nicely together, and it'll give us a nice stout drink. We've got to make some. Y'all wanted to do sundew, right? I'm hip for sundew. Let me pour off some of this Garbo though. Canalum Chop says, yay, at last, one guy in Twitch talking about beer and homebrewing. Great success. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll hit follow. Basically, we're here at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time every single Saturday, and you vote on the ingredients, and then we brew live. And so today, on today's show, we bottled episode 0's brew, which was a hooch made with rice syrup and orange marmalade and wintergreen tea and cacao nibs. Some of those bottles are going to start bottle conditioning now. We added some carbonation drops to most of the bottles. We also racked off our beer that we made on episode 3. This beautiful guy right here. So that beer will be clearing for another week or two, and then we'll get that bottled as well. And then today we mixed up this cider, which I've got to get an airlock on. I might have to go set this up in the attic. Right now it is 15 degrees outside, which means this room stays in like the mid to low 60s. not a great temperature to ferment this ale yeast at. So I'll probably take it up in the attic and ferment it closer in that range to 70 to 75 degrees so we get some of those juicy flavors coming out of it. Well done. This is a good, I think this is a solid recipe. I think lemongrass and a cider might be a thing that I had never really thought about, but might be a thing that we should be doing. We should all be doing. So we'll see how this one goes. I thank you all for being here on this adventure with us, and we'll be back here next Saturday.